scroll, miniature ones, but I know you're all in a tough spot, but send people our way and they can come and see that and see how it does work. We've got some really cool exhibits downstairs. I'd love for you to go check those out. Flight Over Vigo Skies is our newest exhibit. It also represents the Terrell Regional Airport, which we had not had represented before. And then Susie recently put together a Wabash and Erie Canal exhibit that is fantastic. But this time next year, we're going to have an exhibit that's going to be an interurban experience. So you're going to come in, and we hope it to be a downtown destination, so we're excited about that. I do want to introduce Susie Dunning. She is our curator, but also, as you mentioned, the Vigo County historian. She's going to tell you how we do interact with the third graders, and maybe some of the names that they call her. I don't know, but I do want to give a shout out to Rick Berger, because we've been doing these third grade tours since the early 80s, and until I started here and started partnering with Rick, we never received any admission fees from the students. So Rick's partial sponsorship covers admission for all 1,000+ third graders that come through every year. So thank you, and here's Susie Dunn.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me here, and thank you for choosing the History Center for your location. I literally could talk all day long about the third graders and the interactions that we have with them, but I'll just get the funny story out of the way. So every year we get the best questions. As tour guides, these little kiddos are so inquisitive, and they love coming to the History Center and learning about local history, but also just exploring these great spaces. I get the best questions, and the best one so far has been, as I'm explaining the Bimley Pharmacy and how the pharmacists used to mix the medicine to compound it, one little child says, "Were they witches?" No, they were pharmacists. Wow. Are you a witch? No. No, but I can see where you think that. Anyway, they are just so much fun. I remember, I don't know if any other curators can say this or not, but I remember attending the third grade field trip tours when I was in third grade at the old History Center location. To this day, I remember it. I remember the first time I saw Stiffy Green and peeked into that mausoleum. I'm not going to say it was 80-something. But we have been doing it all these years, and I am so proud and happy to be part of that, and happy to carry it on so that new generations can come in and learn about our local history, learn to say Vigo, not Vigo, and all about our local people that we're proud of, and stories and places, and we want to keep that alive. So, but in all seriousness, I don't want to stand up here and tell stories all day, but I could. And the third grade tours is a great part of our year. We look forward to it every year. I have a wonderful team of coordinators that put together the volunteers and the scheduling so that 1,000 kids can walk through this building very orderly and get to enjoy our local history. And it's great. We kind of put everything on hold for about 3 weeks and just focus on those kids and making this a great experience. Thank you so much. Oh, did you have a question?
I do have a question.
Okay.
So I was in the 4th grade in the 90s sometime, I don't remember where I was, but I have a clear memory of visiting the old museum in 4th grade.
Okay.
So was there a time when the school corporation was doing it, or was it just a fluke? Maybe it was, but I remember the Stiffy Green and all that wonderful stuff that we got to see.
I think that in the very beginning, it kind of was, I don't know the exact beginning, I really don't. I know that Dorothy Church started the program, and I'm going to corner her down one day and say, "Tell me everything about everything you know, Dorothy." But I think in the very beginning that it was just kind of like the schools came 3rd, 4th grade. There really wasn't a designated curriculum attached to it in the very beginning. But then once it became more solidified, it was like, well, this county history falls in with the 3rd grade curriculum, so that's what we're going to focus on.
Oh, I was just curious.
Yeah, I think that's how it went.
When do they come and visit? Is it throughout the entire year or just in the spring?
It's in the month of November, so for 3 weeks every year in November.
I just have another comment. When we moved back to Terre Haute, the History Center was one of my first stops with my oldest son. I told him I was gonna make an ocean out of him. And we went through every floor and I made sure he knew City Green. We went to the Chauncey Rose Memorial at Fairbanks Park. And so, I just wanted you to know that that is part of the core memory locked in.
Awesome.
So, thank you very much.
I love sharing our local history. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the partnership and for hosting us this evening.
Okay, that is our spotlights, but we also have the first call for citizen comment.
And dismiss.
Oh, and I will say, if anyone does not want to stay for the rest of our business meeting, you are welcome to. Thank you for attending. We know some people have homework. We don't want to.
But you are welcome to do so.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And as they exit, I'll just do another call for, our first call for citizen comment. I currently have none, but we'll open it up in case you didn't get. Okay, seeing none. Next on the agenda is our consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Up next is new business with our personnel report and professional leave request with Mr. Michael Rock.
Good evening, administration. Request approval of personnel and professional leave reports presented this evening.
I will make a motion to approve the personnel report professional leave request as presented.
I'll second. We have a first and a second. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, up next we have our March accounts payable docket with Mrs. Cindy Hart.
Good evening. Last Thursday, the Finance Committee met and reviewed the following, and pulled the following claims for further review. Sims Painting Company Incorporated, $25,000. This was for servicing, preparation, priming, and painting of the walls at Terrible North Gymnasium lobby, paid from the operations fund. Precision Chemical, $6,666.67. This is the monthly water treatment at all the cooling towers, corporation-wide, paid from the operations fund. ACDC leadership. It's inside joke. This is the AP US History Ultimate Review Packet. We provide high-ability students with study packets for all AP courses, paid from the High Ability Grant. Annually, $10,778.21. This is the monthly bill for hot dog buns, hamburger buns, rolls for all ECSC schools, paid from the school lunch fund. I would be happy to answer any questions at this time, and I ask for your approval of the March accounts payable docket.
Move to approve the March accounts payable docket. A second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments for Mrs. Hart? I'll do my normal appeal that this is a public committee, so anyone from the public can join us. It's usually 5:30 on the Thursday before the board meeting. And we have fun talking about ACDC. So we have a motion and a second to approve the March accounts payable docket. update with Dr. Tammy.
Thank you so much for having us here this evening so we can share with you a little bit of some of the things that go on in the Office of Accountability and what keeps us a tad bit busy. So I am Dr. Tammy Rochendale, Chief Accountability Officer, and wanted to go over first and foremost and share with you some of the things that we provide support and oversight for within the corporation. So within our department, and I have lots of my colleagues with me here this evening, in our department, we are responsible for state reporting, grants and assessments, nursing and medical services, student and family engagement, attendance, McKinney-Vento, homeless, Department of Child Services, homebound and medical homebound, Title IX, Section 504, alternative programming. We're the liaison with Cover Bridge Special Ed District. We work with Vigo, with a coordinated health program through Union Hospital at Grant. Safety and security falls in our department. Working with and supporting our school counselors, providing mental health supports for our students, and also other behavioral health supports. Discipline and support in that regard, and expulsion meetings. So that's probably not all encompassing, but it's quite a bit, and it keeps us busy. So, as I said, I have lots of my colleagues with me this evening. So the first person I'm going to have come up is Abe Nasser.
You want to click or you want me to?
Hello, I'm Abe Nasser. My primary role is state level reporting, management of our student information system, Skyward. But when I'm not doing that, we've been working hard on data automation. And by that I mean, we've been using things like AI to automate our processes. For example, chronic absenteeism is a big issue with the IDOE now. And on every Sunday, we automate a report to all our school principals as well as about 4 other contacts in their building that they choose that shows their most chronically absent students from high to low. It emails them a message with a conference worksheet for them to set up conferences for attendance for these students. A digital truancy, the same thing. We do on Sundays. It goes to the juvenile prosecutor's office. These are our habitually truant students. Our requirement by the IDOE is to report these to that office, and Dr. Rochendale works with them. And then discipline trends. Lately, we've been looking more and more year-over-year discipline data. What did the trends show? And lastly, the new accountability model by the IDOE. So the more the state wants of us, the more data we need to pull and analyze. Now, some other things that we do that's a little bit less intensive. An example Dr. Hensel recognized from the other day. Go ahead, Katie. So the other day we were in a meeting, and one of our principals shared a walkthrough checklist that was black and white. We said was basic, and that was fine. It's efficient, it works, but what can we do? And this is a little blurry, but as we were sitting in that meeting, I think I was sitting with Dr. Hensel, and I said, Mr. Moore, send me that file over here. He sent it over, and a few clicks later, we turned it into this. Now, that's just part of the things we do to beautify our documents, to make them a little bit more user-friendly and readable. But other than that, that's it. That's my role with the Office of Accountability. Any questions?
Questions, Mr.
I have a question. Have you noticed an increase, that's what I'm looking for, in the amount of information that the state's requesting, and that, how could you just describe for us the ramp up over time, how
Yeah.
quickly and how much?
Yeah, I taught web design and computer programming for 15 years at Terre Haute, so luckily my curriculum was always changing. So what I've learned from the IDOE is the curriculum is always changing. Meaning, once we get the process down and we understand what we're doing, it seems to shift, sort of like graduation requirements lately, and this new accountability model that they're working on now for our schools. So, yeah, and I've never felt more like we are changing what we do yearly. with the requests that they make. They have good dashboards, the systems that they're working on are newer and better. The data we send over to what's called data exchange on a nightly basis does make it all more seamless, but it's only as good as our data in our system. So we try really hard to train our buildings and our people on how to enter that data and track that data. But ultimately, it flows nightly to the state of Indiana from our Skyward student information system. But they are requesting more and more data, different data.
And what level of support are you getting from the Department of Education at the state level? Are they answering questions? Are they responsive?
Yeah, they're very responsive. Skyward's very helpful. I would say they're the number one. You know, if we have any issues, anything that's required of the state of Indiana, they will build it out inside that program in time to report it to the state of Indiana. And their support has been fantastic for us. And then on top of that, the DOE has a really good help system and really good people at the DOE that we work with on a regular basis in all areas. There's only about 40 state reports that we submit each year. Each of them have their own different people that we work with.
Thank you.
No problem.
Could you share just a little bit about maybe like the difference between like chronic absenteeism and then when it becomes habitual truancy, like just the difference there?
Yeah.
Cody over there too.
Yeah, Cody will talk more about that. I didn't see it was done there.
Sorry.
It's fine.
In depth.
Habitual truancy deals with more with unexcused absences. So you're dealing with 10 or more unexcused absences, or 10%. So I'll let Cody speak more to it, but chronic absenteeism includes all of it, so any absence.
I just wanted to add, Abe's a tad bit modest. He has a great working relationship with the DOE because they call him as the Skyward guru and ask his input on how to do things more efficiently. And he worked closely with Cover Bridge, Indiana IEP this year because, as you probably heard, that was a very complicated, painful rollout. And he spent a ton of time at Cover Bridge, but DOE was calling him to find out what are the glitches, what can we do to make it better. So he probably wouldn't share that with me, so I wanted to.
Good job.
And if you get, I was going to, because I feel the same way. Abe has become a go-to person throughout the state on the answer to this, and we're very blessed to have him here with us.
Thank you. Appreciate that. You around?
Our parent square rollout between Abe and Dave in IT would not have been as successful without the two of them. It was you.
Kurt, you were next.
I'm waiting for Kurt to get up there.
Good evening, Board. Today I wanted to just update you on how we are evolving our safety protocols moving beyond just locks and keys toward a proactive, holistic culture of security. Enhancing the physical perimeter. First, let's talk about how we enter our buildings. Looking ahead, we are preparing for a future project with Raptor technology. This will allow us to further modernize our visitor management by providing instant background checks when a person checks in the building. We're currently implementing the open gate system at our sporting events and other large functions. Unlike traditional metal detectors that can feel evasive and slow down entries, open gates allows a faster and more respectful flow while ensuring that prohibited items stay out of our venue. Number two, investing in our people. Technology is only as good as the people operating it. That is why we are establishing a robust school safety specialist team at every single one of our schools. This ensures that safety isn't managed from a distance, it's managed by leaders who know the specific footprint and the culture of their own buildings. Furthermore, our school protection officers are undergoing updated rigorous training. This isn't just tactical, it's focused on de-escalation techniques, building positive relationships with our students, and ensuring our officers are seen as mentors and protectors alike. Prevention and community partnerships. We are also looking at why behind safety, we've updated our behavioral threat assessment program. to identify students who may be in crisis long before the situation escalates. Our goal is intervention. Part of that intervention involves our deep collaboration with the Vigo County Juvenile Justice System. By working together, we ensure that our students remain supported both inside and outside the school gates, creating a community-wide net of safety. And to end it, we would do the preparedness to the what ifs. Finally, we must be prepared for the unthinkable. We have finalized a standardized reunification plan in the event of an emergency. Parents need to know exactly where to go and how they will be reunited with their children. This plan provides that roadmap, ensuring order and accountability during high-stress moments. We aren't standing still. We are not standing still. We are continuously reviewing national and local trends in our school security to ensure our protocols are not just current, but are leading the way. Our promise to this community is simple. We will continue to evaluate, adapt, and invest in our people and our technology. We are committed to making our schools the safest place for our children to grow. Thank you. Any questions?
I just want to clarify, when it goes to, we talk about our school safety specialists, we can only send 5 people from our corporation per year to be trained. So when Kirk selects those people that ought to be trained, we look at administrators and aspiring administrators, and we think about having people on the north side, south side, east, west, in case of an emergency. We've got people that can get there quickly. So it'll take us a little bit to have people in all the schools, but we really look at that and put some thought behind that and police and training.
How is that 5-person limit, I mean, who is setting that limit?
That's what the state.
Is that like a law, or is that a state agency that's doing that?
It is the most that they will allow us to, and I think it's because they're serving all 288 school districts and only have so much capacity in the trainees. But it is a limit from the state, it is not local.
Is that state police providing that training, or?
It's the Indiana Safety Academy through the Indiana Department of Education.
Actually, it's the Indiana Department of Homeland Security. They've taken it away from.
Oh, that's right, that is changed.
And so it's a trial error, kind of going through things. It was.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Elaine Miller, and I am the chairperson of nursing, of the nursing department. And so, before I get into this, I just wanted to give kind of an overview of the nursing department. There are 10 registered nurses, including myself, covering all of our students in all of our schools. As you all know, we do not have a nurse in every building, but we have a health assistant managing the day-to-day flow of the health rooms, overseen by our registered nurses. We're happy that at Terre Haute North and at Terre Haute South, we have a full-time registered nurse there all the time, just because of the acuity of things coming in, the multitude of things coming in, and just the numbers that we have at those schools. So that's proven to be very helpful, having those nurses full-time at those 2 schools. Along with all the other things that our nurses do, just taking care of the kids, we're responsible for state mandated vision screening for students in grades 1, 3, 5, and 8. We manage required immunizations, all the chronic health conditions, and just making sure the students are taken care of so that they can properly receive the education that they need when they're at school. So tonight, there's just so much that we do in our department, but tonight I wanted to just focus on one thing, which is I was asked to kind of spotlight something, and we're very happy to have partnered with Valley Professionals to have our school-based health clinics. And so I wanted to give just a quick snapshot of just some of the numbers, and unfortunately, since I've made this slide, I've had more data come in that makes it not even as updated in terms of how many visits, especially with West. So I wanted to point that out because it does look a little lower. And I also want to point out that this is not meant to be a comparison between the 3 schools, like, oh, this one had more than the other. It's just so that you can see that it's being utilized in all the schools. I will also point out that Terre Haute South and West Vigo started their programs October of this past year. We piloted the program at Terre Haute North first, and so saw that things went well. We're happy with how our partnership was going, how it was working for our students, and then expanded that to Terre Haute South and West this past October, like I said. So those are all growing. I broke it down just so you can kind of see the different things that we see by each school and whether the students were going to the health centers for sick visits, which means they just weren't feeling well. They would have probably been sent to the health room because of, nausea, potential fever, sore throats, rash, anything you can think of that they might have been sent down to the health room for. That's what the sick visits constitute. And then the wellness visits are students that just wanted to do just typical either sports physicals, needed to get vaccines, just wanted to go in and get a yearly exam, just more child type situation. So that just kind of shows you the breakdown. Now I will say, like I said, West looks lower, but it's doing very, very well. We actually had a backlog of data that was put in after I made this. So I want to highlight that there are currently over 118 visits to that school too, so I don't want it to make it look like that's significantly less. We also have expanded the services not only for students that attend those high schools, but to all the students within the corporation. So elementary school students are now able, and middle school students are now able to utilize these services. We kind of try to keep it so that they will go use the school that the feeder school that they would go to. So Riley Elementary student, if they wanted to go visit the clinic, would go to Terre Haute South Clinic because that's where they would probably go to high school, and we try to keep it organized in that way. So in those situations where a student would be sent to the health room, say at Riley Elementary, and then they might have to be sent home, we give the parents the option of that being a place to go if they don't know where to go or don't have a family provider, or, ask for help and resources. And so this section, just again, none of it's meant to be, this one's higher than the other. Just shows you that literally all of those students, like that, those percentages are the kids that were able to stay in school, continue their education, not miss any work because we have these clinics here. Because honestly, more than likely, those sick visit columns more than likely would have been sent home because we don't have the resources in the health rooms to make diagnoses, to make the determination of whether, for example, a rash is contagious or not, things like that. So those are the students that were able to stay in school and not alter their school day or just be sent home unnecessarily. Because sometimes, we just don't know, so we have to send them home based on the information that we have. Then we get a call from the parent saying, well, it wasn't anything, now they had to miss the day, and I totally understand that frustration. So now having that within the school, those kids are seen and can go right back to class if they need to, and if it's not something that they need to leave and go have further treatment for. So that's kind of the overview. That's what this was all meant to show, and we've been very, very happy. We have great relationships with the nurse practitioners that staff the clinics. It's been, again, very nice having a registered nurse at North and South because they work very closely with the nurse practitioners and they have a good relationship in terms of, asking questions or feedback and going back and forth. So we've been very happy with the partnership. So that's why I wanted to highlight this evening. Any questions for me?
Are the health clinics, are they open in the summer months or is it just during the school year?
Just during the school year right now.
Okay, thank you. I just have to say I'm delighted to hear from you about positive things. And thank you for everything you did during COVID.
Yes, I know. I saw Amy in the elevator and we were just not sure. We hadn't seen each other in a while, which was a good thing. So
It's wonderful.
yeah, thank you.
And to piggyback on what Elaine shared, I feel like we need to give some kudos to Michael Cox and his office too. The nurses and Elaine spent a ton of time covering health offices in our buildings. And so Michael, a couple of years ago, agreed to hire us a floating health aide. So we have one person that on any given day, they don't know where they're gonna be called and where they're going, but trust me, they're called every single day to go somewhere. So Michael, we owe you forever for that. Thank you, thank you. And Elaine really thanks you, so she covers all this. So I wanted to follow up on that with talking a little bit about behavioral health supports that we have as well within those clinics, and we are thrilled about this. Originally, again, when you look at the numbers and the visits, At Terre Haute North, keep in mind that they piloted it a year before we had the clinics at West and South, but word is catching on. So Terre Haute North naturally sees more students. Of that 355 students who come for behavioral health, those are repeat, that's the number of visits. So it could be same students counted more than once in those numbers. And there is support in that building 3 days a week, and that's been there all school year thus far. Terre Haute South has support 5 days a week, but they've only been providing services since about mid-November to present, and the same can be said for West Vigo High School. They have support 5 days a week, and that started mid-November to present. We have a case manager that works with all of the clinics through Valley Professionals, so they make sure, like for example, at Terre Haute North, there's somebody there 3 days a week. On the one day, there's no one there. If we contact that case manager, they can reach out to West or Terre Haute South, and we can get help, whether it's virtually, phone call, whatever. We can hook a student up so nobody falls through the cracks. That will probably be balanced out by the end of this school year to think about where the need is and what we need to do. Do we need to include, or do we need to increase Terre Haute North to 5 days a week? Is there support at the other 2 schools that might be able to be repositioned if necessary? But we are thrilled to have that support now in all 3 high schools. Also, it's important to add, because West Vigo High School and middle school are connected, we see middle school students for behavioral health supports as well, which is phenomenal. Also, wanted to highlight, this partnership has been wonderful for us, and they have went through the RFP process. They provide counseling services within our building, as well as Casey and Hamilton Center at this time, within our buildings. We also want to thank the board for, and Dr. Hinsel for committing to e-intervention. That's our electronic referral and our referral tracking system, which is really important. When somebody refers a student for services, you can go into that e-intervention platform and see, has someone picked that kiddo up yet? Has the parent followed through? Are they out there waiting? And if so, why? What can we do to help? So it's wonderful for those counselors who love those kids and are dedicated to those kids. And once they make that referral, it's not mystery land. They can go in and see where it's landing right at that moment if someone's picking that kiddo up. Also, just in the world of behavioral health, we continue to monitor Handle with Care. And in fact, Cody and Kurt not too long ago went to another county to share with them our experiences and what that looks like here. So that was kind of an honor for them to be asked and to go share that information. Continue to use the Stop It app, which is reporting bullying. And oh my goodness, we get, I would say, anywhere from 15 to 30 of those a day. Ones that are escalated and they need somebody's immediate attention, those come to Kurt and I and Cody, so one of the 3 of us stay on top of those. And the beauty of the Stop It app is that it's monitored 24/7 by an outside company, so that if, a student submits something, that principal, even though I'm sure they feel like they're there 24 hours a day, and they kind of are in lots of ways, right? They may not be sitting at their computer to see that, and if there's something that's escalated, it goes to an agency, then that agency has our numbers, Cody, Kurt, and I, and they get a hold of somebody 24/7, morning, noon, night, Saturdays, Sundays. So we continue to work with that, and then we continue to support lots of agency partnerships within our community. And we've worked really, really hard this year in taking pride in, I know in the last couple of years, I've learned so much about what's available here in Vigo County. And so we're working really hard and trying to be intentional that when we learn of services and supports that are right here in our backyard, to get those to the principals and to get those to the counselors and get it out in the building. Because I think sometimes, even though we've maybe had a face for Vigo County in these different agencies or attending these different things, we have to make sure we're real intentional and make sure that we know everybody in the building knows those supports are right here in Terre Haute. So we've worked really hard to address that as well. So, and then in the world of behavioral health, I'm really pleased and excited this is like a big news flash. It's one of the most exciting things I'm going to be able to say tonight, is that we have the addition of Mrs. Marie Thies in our department. And she will be our school-based facilitator of mental health and counseling services full-time this fall, But Terre Haute North was gracious enough to work with her schedule where she gets some afternoons off, and she helps us now in the afternoon a little bit, and has already helped us with professional development, planning for next school year. We've been working with some vendors for some new counseling curriculum, supporting our counselors, and we've already got great things on the horizon, wanting to bring back like the Counselor Academy where we bring them in once a month next year, some things we want to do with our students as well. So just a few of her responsibilities will be facilitating our partnerships, community supports, professional development, supporting our counselors. She's very familiar with community sources, and she's also been a former counselor in our schools. So we are thrilled, Marie. We told her we would have her talk tonight, so that means you're up next time, girlfriend. But anyway, we're thrilled to have her on our team. She'll bring great things out of the way. So, Cody? come up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cody Dolly, and I'm the coordinator of student and family engagement. So tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about attendance. So as you see at the top, the tagline, "Every day counts." We adopted that from Attendance Works. They are the primary website that the IDO refers us to regarding community attendance. So on their site, they have a lot of templates, ideas, fun stuff for us to look at and reference. So I want to leave you with a statistic tonight. Out of Vigo County, students who attend 96% or more score an average of 10% higher on state assessments. So that means if we can get kids in the classroom, we can get them achieving at high levels. So we take a multi-pronged approach to it. Some of the stuff you may be seeing soon is our public awareness and media campaign. So we've partnered with schools. Terre Haute South has a group of students. They're going to start recording some short videos. A couple grade schools, a couple middle schools. The mayor has graciously volunteered to be a part of that project. So hopefully that's coming soon and you guys can view some of those. We also have intervention and support. So when I first started, we were in the process of automating. Abe started sending out a report automatically every Sunday night to every principal that shows all their absentee rates. So they're all color-coded, tiered. We got that from Attendance Works. So every Monday morning, when they get to their desk, they have that email open. They can see who's been absent this much, and this much, what tier they're falling in. We also have a lot of collaboration and research within the community. I know we did a partnership with ISU on their PhD courses, really specifically geared towards student attendance in Vigo County. So we got a lot of good feedback there. And lastly, we have some at-risk liaisons that we work with. These folks do some home visits. They do a lot with our students. And I'm not going to steal all the thunder because I'm going to come up and speak with you next. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Have you seen any successful campaigns in any of the schools to increase their attendance? Like my kids go to debating, so I know they're in the middle of March Madness bracket for attendance, and it's a big deal. There's lots of reporting to parents about it. So
That is a good one, yes. And there are more initiatives all the time, so that's one of our goals is to increase the initiatives. We're starting with this social media video initiative, trying to get students engaged. We want to build a culture of attendance, so we really want to drive that home. Our tagline, "Every day counts," and make sure that the community knows that attendance is a community issue.
There's a t-shirt in the gift shop that says something about trains. Is there a marked difference between attendance rates for like elementary, middle school, high school, and do we see it drop off at a certain point?
Absolutely, yeah. We delineate that, and that's part of what Wayne's going to speak about. We're starting in the elementary schools because we do see that drop off. It starts in middle school where you have students not attending, and then that increases as they go through high school. So our goal, our thought process is we're going to start in elementary school, start addressing it young, develop those habits early on, and work with the parents in elementary school to build that culture of attendance.
To give a little bit of attendance rate. With the 96% attendance rate, our kids are actually outperforming the state passing rates by a significant amount. If you have a 96% attendance rate, you're only missing 7 days per year. And if you miss 7 days or fewer per year for your entire kindergarten through 12th grade year, you only miss a semester of school throughout the entire 13-year period. Whereas if you miss a 90% attendance rate, you're missing 18 days every year, and 18 days times kindergarten through 12th grade means you've missed almost a year and a half of school during your career. And if you've missed a year and a half of school, I think it's understandable why you're behind.
I will say too, the automated attendance tracker that Cody put together that goes out to the principals every week has allowed that data to be right at their fingertips. So, because it takes a lot of work to do all that, they figured out a way to do that in an automated format. So, they've got it right in front of them every day. Who's been gone the most, but also who's here every day as they ought to be as well.
Good evening, members of the board, President Kempton, Superintendent Henderson, forgive me. My name is Dwayne Long. I work in the Office of Accountability as a school liaison. It's been mentioned here today, 3 days a week. I also work with my co-worker, Terry McGee. She was unable to be here today. But 3 days a week, we work with elementary students as far as home visits, knocking on doors and checking on families and also checking on children. Now, how we approach these home visits, it's like a wellness visit. When we knock on doors, we know that parents have heard from the school corporation, from our office many times. So the last thing we want to do is to kind of jump on them. So we are questioning, asking them, how is their student doing? What can we do to assist them to get them to come to school? Many times, in that, parents aren't home. My coworker, Terry McGee, said there must be something we can do to at least get some attention of these parents to let them know that we've been here. So what you have in front of you are bags, okay, where we provide contact information, provide them with information regarding, statistical information regarding the importance of being at school, and any services that we can provide that they need to contact us. On those bags, we get about 40% contact back from parents contacting us saying, hey, thank you for the information. We'll make sure we'll do a better job. And so the bags have really been a blessing for us on our job. The other opportunity Terry and I had was on MLK Day and also for Black History Month. We were invited to the Vigo County Juvenile Center, where we provided presentations. We provided presentations on, the Poor People's Campaign, the last campaign that Dr. King did before dying. Also for Black History, we did the importance of, or reflecting on mass incarceration and the history of mass incarceration, and we did a Who Am I regarding Black history. Any questions?
Yes. How long have you been doing the orange bags?
We've been doing the orange bags December, maybe? November?
Yeah, since late fall.
Yeah, about November, December.
40% return on that.
Yeah,
On the bags.
on the bags,
Yeah,
contact.
that's really good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Megan Ruby, and I am here as a representative from the Coordinated Health Program. I serve as the mental health navigator for the program, and I want to share just some exciting things that we have going on in the schools, K through 12. Some nutrition programming, ongoing nutrition programming includes elementary education focusing on key nutrition concepts and providing access to nutrient-rich foods, receiving foods from each food group. and our Chelsea Dickerson, our nutrition navigator, is taking that on. High school students have also been receiving education that's relevant to nutrition topics such as sugar and caffeine intake, which has been very interesting to see what comes out. Programming in the area of physical activity include our Great Stride Run Series, which we just had one on Saturday. It was a beautiful day. We had the best turnout that we have had after, this is our second year doing it. We had all kinds of families come to ISU Memorial Stadium to run for the day and to get moving, which was wonderful. We also have been able to provide professional development for PE teachers, as well as support for the purchase of equipment for PE teachers. In addition, our physical activity navigator, Dr. Madison Schmidt, has provided a K-5 movement toolkit, after-school sports clubs at various elementary schools, and also just completed her second Safe Sitter class last weekend, which was held at the Learning Lab. We had 15 students, middle school students, come and learn safety skills, rescue skills, and just basic skills that they will need if they're going to be starting babysitting over the summer. And we have one more planned for early summer as well, so they're actually on the wait list for that. So there's definitely a need, and we're excited that it was such a great turnout. Programming in the area of mental health includes vocational skills lessons in the second graders. Working with Marie, she graciously invited me to the counselor meeting last week so I could introduce myself, and we've got a professional development coming up in the fall that we're working together on, so that's exciting to be able to do that. Something else that is a huge need is we partner with Terre Haute PD on digital citizenship, social media safety, how to stay safe online, giving kids tangible strategies on how to limit their use on their phones, how to limit their use on social media, and when they are using social media, how to stay safe while they do that, and how to engage in content that's educational and fun versus harmful. A new initiative that's really exciting that we're piloting this spring in partnership with Maryland Community Church is the Weekend Meal Program. We are in our 4th week, and we are averaging like 280 meals being sent home throughout the district. We are focusing on nutrition balanced meals rather than snack packs. So students are going home with 2 full meals to be able to have over the weekend. And so we're very grateful for the partnership with Maryland Community Church for funding that for this spring semester. We are working with Union Health Foundation to provide sustainability to help us figure out how we can continue this for years to come. 680 students are benefiting from this every week, so we know that there's a need and it is important. And so we're excited to continue that work, and we're hopeful. Since launching the program, we've received 2 other donations from community partners, so we're hopeful as word gets out and word spreads that we'll be able to continue this for our students who otherwise might go hungry over the weekend. Any questions?
I just wanted to say thank you for the great strides. My kids and I joined this weekend when we had class, and we're always coming. Yes, with a great turnout, and probably the best weather. And the Girls on the Run program that was there, and you can tell the running clubs from the different elementary, so it was great to see. Thank you.
And just as a reminder, this is through a partnership that we have with Union Health.
Yes, sir. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Lee.
Good evening, I'm Dr. Pete Lieberman, and I serve as the coordinator of grants and assessments. With a focus on grants, we continue to manage and maintain our compliance with all federal, state, and local grants, as well as look for additional opportunities that align with our district initiatives. With that being shared, I'm looking forward to May 1st, because that is when the pre-application becomes available from the IDOE, and that means that I need to complete that so we have access to all other grant applications. So it is a very important date on my calendar each year. With that, we'll transition to assessments. And the state has shifted, to a through-year assessment plan, which is implemented in collaboration with our curriculum team colleagues, as well as through the support of Covered Bridge as well. With that, this semester, you'll note some of the assessments that have been completed thus far. Since January, the WIDA assessment, High Ability Identification in kindergarten, 1st, and 5th grade, as well as our second I-Learn checkpoint and the spring administration of iRead, along with the SAT, have been completed. This week, we'll complete our third I-Learn checkpoint, and then when we return from spring break, we'll shift our focus to I-Am, and then our I-Learn summative assessment as well. With that, we know that we'll have a new assessment being added to our windows next year, and with that, it will be our kindergarten through second grade math universal screener. So we're currently looking at the 2 approved vendors for that assessment. And then also preparing for, of course, the 26-27 school year and aligning our calendar as such, so we can ensure that we're supporting our teachers and our students with this 3-year I-Learn assessment. With that being shared, we also just recently launched a family platform which is provided through the Indiana Department of Education, and so our families have access to the assessment scores of their students. So all of those individualized student reports are available to them in real time. With that, we still will upload the scores to Skyward. It's important that we have it available there as well. However, we've received positive feedback regarding this new platform as well. With that, University Connections is quickly upon us, and we're looking forward to June 15th through the 26th. With that, we have hired our team, and we are beginning those collaborative conversations and work sessions to prepare for the program. It is a collaborative effort through many departments within the district, and we look forward to this each year. Our students will be able to register following spring break. We anticipate we'll see several hundred again this year, and then we'll look forward to hosting them. Of course, we're very appreciative of the continued support of the Vigo County Education Foundation, who fund our supplies, $25,000 worth of resources. With that being shared, there's some other opportunities within that as well, but we're focused on ensuring that we're sending home resources with our students to continue the summer learning at home. So we're very much looking forward to this upcoming summer program again this year. And again, that is for current 2nd through 5th grade students as well. Any questions regarding any of these?
Questions about the grant work that you do. So federal, state, and local, about how much of your time is spent on the application and reporting, and how many other people are working with you to execute that work?
So it does require a significant amount of time depending on the grant and the requirements surrounding it. Each of the grants have different timelines as well. So if I'm looking at a Title I grant, I know July 1 is our start date, and then September 30th of the following year is the end date. If I shift my focus to Titles 2, 3, and 4, Titles 2 and 4 specifically, because Title 3, Janet Rosen takes the lead on. But with Titles 2 and 4, that's a 27-month grant. And so with that, we're writing that grant a year in advance, and then we're implementing it starting the following year. So looking at that, and then also we have to maintain our partnerships with all non-public schools, and then we also are recipients of the Title I Part D grant, which would support delinquent institutions. So we provide support to Vigo County Homes for Children, the Vigo County Juvenile Justice Center, and Jabalt as well. And so there's the equitable share of each of these grants. So every year I connect and collaborate with them, and then we hold that funding as the LEA, so we continue to provide support throughout the duration of the school year. And we have 3 non-public schools that have committed to Title I funds this past year, and I have 6 schools I need to connect with as we look forward to next school year.
So it's a full-time job, and there are other people who have full-time jobs who need to pay attention to the reporting and the deadlines and the applications. I just really think that that's important to highlight, because there's an administrative arm to so much of this that if that's not executed properly, then the funding isn't there. So I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you.
And right now, I'm in the season of amendments and carryover dollars with some of our grants, so just maintaining a pulse on that and the assessments as well.
Which we like to do, because that means we can.
One of the things we had talked about that we needed for our students for quite some time is an educational piece for the vaping that we're seeing in the buildings. And we've certainly had a huge uptake on vaping the THC. So we, in a partnership with Casey this year, Cody and I came up with a restorative measures course that is a piece of the discipline for vaping, but it's an educational component. So if you, in the past, were caught with an unlawful substance in the building, which I might remind everyone, even nicotine is an unlawful substance for a minor, but now we're seeing so much of the THC that would be an arrest in a school. So in lieu of arrest, our deans have as an option, they can assign a student, they get a consequence, but in lieu of arrest, they can attend this 3-day restorative measures course. And so there are 3 nights in a row, it's 1 week a month, there's 3 nights in a row, they have to come at 6 in the evening with a parent. And they have to have a parent with them. And we offer an educational piece. And Shannon Giles is going to talk about that in a minute, the curriculum that she follows. But anyway, this has been extremely effective this year. And the next slide shows you, we had 75 students thus far this year who would have been arrested for being caught with THC in the buildings. And of those 75, only 7 students and their parents, for whatever reason, decided not to be compliant and attend the class. We would follow up with a courtesy phone call and say, hey, you weren't there, what's the story, in case it's something dire. But anyway, 7 chose not to do that, so then they were later arrested on paper. But we're seeing a 90% completion rate. So the prosecutor's office is very pleased with us over this, because I'm sure they've got bigger fish to fry. But at the end of the day, we hope our kids learn something. Cody and I feel like we've learned a lot sitting in those classes at night with Shannon. But it really goes over the health impact of vaping, looks at the marketing tactics. It's a very interesting course. It's also very collaborative and interactive. Students participate, students talk, parents participate, parents talk. So anyway, we're very proud of it, and it's been very successful this year.
What does arrested on paper mean?
Oh, Kurt could probably speak to that. Kurt? Amy Lord asked, what does it mean when we say like arrest on paper, like versus being arrested on site?
So instead of physically taking them and putting them in handcuffs and taking them to a center, that's what we do is we'll arrest them on a piece of paper, turn that paper in, they then have to appear in front of the judge. It's just like a subpoena. Or a summons to appear.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
But the reason for that is because they're given the other option
Yeah,
first
no, I
and then
understand.
call for
I
it.
just wasn't familiar with that term, so thanks.
Okay. And that naturally segues into the great partnership that we have with Shannon Giles and Casey. Casey is so good to us, and they offer a lot in our schools and for our corporation. So she's going to talk a little bit more about the RMC course and then talk about lots of other things that Casey does for us as well. So Shannon?
Hi, my name is Shannon Giles. I work at Chances and Services for Youth, not for Dr. Rochendale, contrary to what she might say. I do specifically tobacco prevention and education, but I'm here as a representative for Casey as a whole to talk a little bit about what our relationship with Vigo County Schools is and the multi-different ways that we are involved in the school systems. I will piggyback on what Tammy was talking about with our restorative measures course. This is something that goes back 3 superintendents. We've been talking about the need for something that is an alternative to suspension or arrest for the students that are caught. Back when the biggest issue was vaping of nicotine, not so much THC, but really addressing it as the medical addiction problem that it is, as the mental health issue that it is, and not simply treating it with punishment and consequences, which our studies and data show don't really move the needle towards really helping these kids get to a better space. So we launched it this year. We didn't really know what to expect. We were a little making it up as we went along, but the program has been hugely successful. I taught last week at Terre Haute North to 9th graders. I ran into a couple of kids that I had had in the restorative measures classes. It was great to see that they were still in school. I ran into a couple at West Vigo this week. I run into these kids from all over, and it's lovely to see that they are making better choices and really getting something out of the work that we're doing. And I appreciate the fact that Cody and Tammy have let us come in and provide this service. We do it in addition, in conjunction with Wabash Valley Recovery Center. Chad's here, wave Chad, hi Chad. And they provide some family and family and youth counseling. They come on the third night of our group and make a presentation, and have engaged a lot with parents who are also going through recovery as a way to really support the whole family, because we know this is a generational issue. If there are other members of the family that are in addiction or recently in recovery, it tends to roll downhill to the younger parts of the family, and so we're trying to really support these families as a whole. So, this is the short list of all the things that Casey does. I was like, oh, I'm gonna talk about all of Casey, and then I realized that the only 4 things that are not me are these 4 right here. So, I'm gonna start there and work my way backwards. Casey Counseling is something that we launched a couple of years ago, and we have, actually I'm going to talk a little bit more about that one in a minute. Teen Court is something that we do in conjunction with juvenile probation. The students get referred from the schools. They are then taken through the probation system, and they have the opportunity to come out to Teen Court as a diversion program. We have seen 67 students so far this school year, and they are able to work on making plans and programs as an alternative to incarceration, and do some restorative work as well to keep them from staying on the path that they're currently on. We have before and after school care with certain schools that we work with, elementary schools that we work with. We also do a large summer school program. In addition, we provide food to the before and after school programs at the Y and Camp Navigate. So we do all the food. We have about 60 to 70 kids every day. Not all of them come every day. And it's when you can tell when they've hit the building, it gets really loud. And then the mentoring program, we discontinued our affiliation with Big Brothers Big Sisters last year, and we launched our own mentoring program. Right now, we are working in Terre Haute North and Franklin. We also have a program of kids that come into Casey for mentoring, and that is a program that has just started this year and has been successful, and we're looking to grow it. We've actually already contracted with some schools in Vermilion County, so we're moving out in that direction. Catch My Breath is the prevention program that we are doing, and that is something that we are working on with all 9th graders in all 3 high schools. We also do it with FACS programs in the middle schools with 6th and 7th graders. We do a lot of the National Days of Action to give students an opportunity to sort of reinforce their commitment to staying tobacco and THC free. Red Ribbon Week is mental health and substance abuse. That's the last week of October. We always come into the schools, we do some fun projects with the kids. This year we added elementary schools, but last year we put vape disposal buckets in all the middle and high schools. Prior to that, the vapes were basically getting tossed, and we do have stories of kids that were dumpster diving for those vapes, because they're not cheap. Last year we pulled over 300 vapes out of the schools. Those were taken to Indianapolis to a recycling center, because our primary goal is getting the nicotine salts out of the waterways and soil, and the lithium-ion batteries out of the landfills, because they are extremely volatile and unstable and will blow up. Take Down Tobacco will be coming up the week after spring break. Our theme this year is Stick It to Big Tobacco, and I'm apologizing to any of the school principals that are listening, because we're giving out sticky hands. So, yeah, it was, I took a vote, that's what the kids wanted to do. In addition, we do a leadership summit every June, June 9th, 10th, and 11th. In years past, we've been at St. Mary Woods College. This year, we're going to be at Rose Holman, so we're excited about that switch. For one, it's cheaper, but we're excited about that. We spend a day taking the students into Indy. They get to meet with our state legislators, they get to tour the State House. We have to take them to an escape room, because that's what they like. But we do a lot of leadership training, we do team building training. It's just a great time, and it's open to 12 to 17-year-olds from all over the county, so it's not just a school-specific program. The same is true for our Eileen Voice. It's a youth advocacy program, also available to all middle and high school students that we operate, that they are peer-to-peer advocates for nicotine, substance abuse, alcohol, and they go out and talk to city, county, state, federal legislators about legislation that is important to students in the areas of substance abuse. And it's a great way for them to build public speaking skills, leadership training, and so forth. So, yeah, if you'll go to the next slide, please. So, this is a big part of why we do what we do. Since the 1950s, big tobacco has been marketing to young people. If you're in my generation, you remember Joe Cool and Marlboro Man. For African American populations, it was the Newport Jazz Festival and scholarships to HBCUs, but the marketing has constantly been to young people. That's where vapes came from. They were starting to lose the cigarette market with young people. They needed a new product. So vapes came out because they have the flavors and they have the cool colors. They now have them that are Bluetooth enabled, and they have really made them irresistible to young people. $256 million in the state of Indiana, targeting young people. 75% of that is point of sale, so it's what's happening in convenience stores and billboards and social media. It's coming right into the eyes of our young people. As a state, we get $9 million to combat that. So you see the problem that we're dealing with here. But yeah, this is what we're trying to combat. This is what we talk about when we talk about prevention to middle school and high school students. We talk to them about being their own advocates and resisting the constant barrage of advertising that they are getting from the big tobacco companies. Next, please. This new bill came out, it goes into effect July 1st, HR 1004. It requires that from IDOE through the local health departments that K through 12 gets 2 years of substance abuse prevention instruction in K through 8, 1 year in 9 through 12. Good news, we're pretty much already there. So we absolutely have the 9 through 12 part covered. I've been doing the 9th grade health classes for the last 2 years, don't see that changing. We don't have all of the middle schools yet, but we have several of them, and we're getting good data on the effectiveness of that. And then we fund Too Good for Drugs in the elementary school level. We don't actually facilitate that, but we fund that program. So we are doing this already. We have ideas for ways we can do it better. Next week. This is what Catch My Breath has done so far this year. By the end of the year, all freshmen will have received, actually by the end of this week, because this is my last high school, all freshmen will have received nicotine and cannabis prevention education. 286 graders, 225 up to 7th graders. Again, we are not in all the middle schools yet, but now we've got 10 of 4 of them, 0.2. So we're hoping to expand that. And I actually, we are going to work on a project to actually get the FACS teachers trained to be able to deliver this program themselves, because it's completely free. Next, please. Now I'll talk about case and counseling. So these are all the schools where we are actively operating. We see about 40 students a week across all these schools. Some of it is students coming to our building for family and individual counseling. We do push into all of those schools with life skills as well as counseling services. And then we do some group counseling as needed at different locations. We are also looking to expand and provide a group for the students that come through our restorative measures program, so that we are not bringing them in for 3 nights and then dropping them off a cliff. We're going to look at providing them some after support, after care for after they've been through the restorative measures class. I think that's the last one. I think I'm done. Any questions? I know that was a lot. Hi, yes.
Is tobacco use and use of vapes up? Because it seems like there's a tobacco store and a vape store on every corner in town.
Yeah, we passed a zoning ordinance, last year in February, that in the future limits, where vape shops can be located. New vape shops that come in, now this is unfortunately strictly vape retailers, it doesn't include convenience stores and, grocery stores and the like. But going forward, there are gonna be some limitations on where they can be located in relation to things that are youth-oriented, as well as within proximity to each other. Now, we are currently doing our point of sale count, where we are going around to all the tobacco retailers and looking at prices where they're locating products close to youth-oriented items in like convenience stores and the like. 2 years ago, we had 93 stores. This year, we have 116. So, there you go. But I have to say that there is a consequence to overcrowding because 2 of the ones that came up in the half block of Wabash have closed since that happened. So, there is such a thing as too many vape shops, no matter what they say. I have packets for all of you that have some detailed information about all of this that I'll give you later. So, thank you.
Well, I'm sure that you can feel the passion that Shannon has for this. This is her jam, so she is certainly very good for our students, and we appreciate all that she does.
They still don't work for you.
Work with me. Okay. All right. We love that she works with us. So one of the things that we've been remiss in pointing out tonight is that we spent a ton of time developing a strong collaborative relationship with juvenile probation and the prosecutor's office, because we are just strongly feel we've got to work together closely, because these are our students and it's our community. It's not a Vigo County School Corporation problem, it's not a Vigo County problem, it's our problem, so we work very closely with them. And I would be remiss tonight in presenting on the Office of Accountability if I did not thank our administrative assistants, Caitlin Lay, Kathy Miner, and Gail West, thank you. I started to say Gail Artist, one of our old colleagues in Vigo County years ago, but Gail West. They are the sweetest, kindest, hardest working ladies. We truly have a heart for kids, and so we're thrilled to work with them, and they do a lot for us. So if there's anything that you heard that you would like us to come back at some point with further data, deeper data on any particular area of interest or of focus, we'd be happy to do that. But thank you for listening to us tonight.
So Tammy,
Yes.
and team, wow, amazing. You surely showed my definition of accountability, so thank you for all your hard work. It was an educational process for me as a board member. And I hope Sue and Alex, the media, spread the word, because you're living up to what people ask us, accountability in the school corporation. This team, as other teams do too. Thank you.
Thank you. Truly, everybody in our department, they have a servant's heart. And they work really hard, and they care about kids, their families, people in our buildings that are serving our kids. They work really hard. We're really proud of them. It's an honor to work with all of them. Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is the 2025 financial review by Mrs. Thomas.
You want me to sit right here? Yeah, whatever. I don't know. I can sit wherever. Which one it's just this.
Good evening.
Okay.
I'll tell you right now up front, if you have questions, go ahead and stop as we go, so that we don't get way ahead in the slides. So feel free to interrupt me if you have a question. Tonight, I'd like to provide a brief overview of the district's financial operations for calendar year 2025, along with sharing some comparative data for calendar years 24 and 23. As a reminder, school corporations in Indiana maintain their accounting records on a cash basis of accounting rather than an accrual basis. Our focus is directed heavily on cash flow and staying within the annual calendar year budgets approved by the Department of Local Government Finance, or the DLGF. Our team works very hard to ensure expenditures are recorded consistently in the proper years so that our cash balances remain comparable from year to year. We track encumbrances carefully, which is why you will often hear us talk about net cash balances when discussing the district's financial position. Keeping that in mind, let's look back at 2025. Last year, the district managed nearly 90 individual funds. Many of those are the ones that Caitlin Lieberman was up here speaking about. Most of our funds are grant funds provided either through state or federal resources. Remember that funds are individual, self-balancing sets of accounts that have separate, distinct uses. Some funds, as we will focus on this evening, are operating funds. Some are restricted use grant funds, focusing on specific programs. Some are bond funds that have set predetermined project parameters that limit their use. The establishment of separate funds ensures transparency in reporting, compliance with applicable rules or laws, and accountability. We could easily spend an entire evening discussing the many grants and special purpose funds the district receives. However, tonight we're going to focus on 3 funds that support the core operations of the district. Those 3 funds are the Education Fund, the Operations Fund, and the Operating Referendum Fund. These 3 funds, along with the Debt Service Fund, are commonly referred to as our tax-supported funds. Let's begin with the Education Fund. The Education Fund is the largest of the district's funds and supports student instruction and learning. In 2025, Education Fund revenue totaled just over $117.8 million, as shown on this slide. For comparison, 2024 revenue was $124 million, 2023 revenue was $116.2. Let's first look at why revenue was lower in 25 than in 24. At the end of calendar year 24, the district transferred $3.4 million from the textbook rental fund to the Education Fund to permanently close the TBR fund. Prior to 2025, schools in Indiana had standalone textbook rental funds that were established to record all transactions related to curricular material purchases and rentals. Starting with the 23-24 school year, the state began allocating a per pupil amount of funding to each school district to offset the cost of curricular materials, eliminating the rental component of our TBR program, but kept the TBR fund in place to record all transactions related to the purchases of those materials. This per student allocation was sent to each district as a lump sum payment in December each year. Then in 2025, the state eliminated the standalone fund along with the annual allocation and embedded the funding into the basic grant, which we will discuss again later. Also beginning in 2025, residential placement reimbursements and preschool funding were moved out of the Education Fund and are now tracked through separate grant funds based on guidance from the Indiana Department of Education. If we exclude those 3 items from 2024 revenue, 25 revenue would be about $368,000 less than 2024. Obviously, you can see the primary source of Education Fund revenue is tuition support from the state, which is totally dependent on enrollment data. Tuition support was $115.6 million in 2025, up from just over $115 million in 2024, and represents approximately 90% of all Education Fund revenue. Tuition support is made up of 2 components, so let's look at those. The basic grant, which is driven by student enrollment counts down in October and February of each school year. Abe Nasser is responsible for submitting that data for us, so thank you, Abe. And categorical grants, which support programs like special education, career and technical education, English language learners, and academic performance, each with associated count dates for those groups of students. The basic grant is by far the largest component of tuition support, totaling about $99.5 million alone for calendar year 2025. The basic grant is calculated by multiplying our enrollment by a per student foundation amount that is established by the state legislature. For the 25-26 school year,
that amount is $7,973 per student for Vigo County Schools. For comparison, it was $7,733 in 24-25 and $7,630 for the 23-24 school year. One thing to keep in mind is that this foundation amount now includes textbook rental funding that we discussed earlier, since the state moved that program into the basic grant formula. Our 2024 textbook rental payment from the state was just over $2 million. So if I were to assume that our funding is consistent for our TBR allocation, and I compare 25 tuition support of $115.6 million to 2024 support, I can reasonably assume our funding for tuition support in 2025 is approximately $1.5 million less than it was in 2024. If I take the $115.6 million, subtract out the $2 million for TBR, leaves me with $113.6 million versus the $115 million that we received in 24. Obviously, the other important factor is student enrollment. Our enrollment declined from 13,160 students in the fall of 23 to 12,609 students in the fall of 25, a loss of 551 students. You can see how per pupil funding amounts affect education fund revenue. If the per pupil funding does not increase annually or doesn't increase enough, our funding will go down as enrollment trends downward. And as we think about losing students, if Vigo County Schools loses 100 students, that loss isn't attributable to only one building. It could be spread throughout the district, which means it's extremely difficult for the district to implement cost-saving measures to offset that revenue loss. That's why districts across the state, including ours, continue working with legislators and professional organizations to emphasize how important these funding components are to schools. Another revenue source worth noting is interest income. In 2025, interest received to the education fund was just under $1.8 million compared to $2.4 million in 2024. That decrease reflects both somewhat lower interest rates and the poor timing of the maturity of one CD that if it had matured at the end of 25, it would have meant another $426,000 to interest income in the year. So that's a little bit. Now let's look at education fund expenditures, specifically at salaries and benefits. Since this fund supports our core instructional programs, you would assume that most expenses would be attributable to people, and that would be correct. Teacher salaries totaled $50.3 million in 2025. Total salaries and wages were about $66.5 million. Fringe benefits were just over $24 million in the education fund. That brings total personnel costs to about $90.6 million, or about 89% of education fund expenditures. Please take just a few seconds to look down at this list of positions that you find paid from our education fund. Teachers, educational assistants, nurses, etc. These employees directly support instruction and student services throughout the district. Other expenses in the education fund include contracted services, primarily substitute teachers through Kelly Services, which totaled about $2.9 million last year. Covered Bridge Special Education Cooperative, which provides specialized services to our schools like school psychologists, therapists, and diagnosticians. Our cost for those services was about $1.5 million in 2025. But it's important to also note that the Covered Bridge assessments changed after 23, moving personnel costs for our special education preschool funding actually to the appropriate salary accounts in our ledger. So now those are embedded in the salary accounts rather than shown on this line. So you're looking at a different comparison from 23 all the way to 25. Residential placement costs, which total about $574,000 for the district's share of those placements, is also shown. It's important to know on a residential placement, we have to pay a certain portion out of pocket before the state's reimbursements kick in. So this $574,000 was our net cost. You'll also notice a significant increase in supplies, equipment, and licenses That increase is largely due to curricular material purchases that now have moved to the education fund due to the elimination of the textbook rental fund. Those costs in 2025 total nearly $2.6 million. Overall, education fund expenditures total $101.5 million in 2025 compared to $96 million in 2024. Now, it's important to note another item on this slide, and that's at the bottom of the sheet where we get to the transfer from the education fund to the operations fund. We don't consider that at the time it moves from education to operations as an expenditure, as it's not counted against us, against our budget. It is merely a transfer of education funds into the operations fund, and then it's dispersed from the operations fund. State law allows transfers from the education fund to the operations fund because when Indiana restructured school funding in 2019, operational costs like transportation, utilities, and maintenance were moved out of the general fund or another separate funding silo like the transportation fund, and all grouped into the new operations fund. But they did not transfer enough revenue to fully support those costs. So to address the gap, districts can transfer by statute up to 15% of their education fund revenue to the operations fund each year. In 2025, our transfer of just under $16 million represented about 13.6% of education fund revenue. You can see the same transfer in 24 and 15.25 million was transferred in 2023. One thing this slide clearly illustrates is that we are an organization of people. In 2025, about 89% of education fund expenditures were personnel costs. If we also include substitute teachers and specialized staff provided through Covered Bridge, that percentage would be about 93%. So when we talk about changes to spending in the education fund, it's important to remember that those decisions almost always impact people, and if we make modifications to our staffing costs, we ultimately affect classroom instruction. If we break down salaries and wages alone, you can see that about 76% of education fund salaries and wages are paid to teachers, 8% to building level administration, 7% to health and education assistants, etc. The next slide shows these same costs and breaks them down on a program basis. Indiana schools are required to report all expenditures by function, and you can see the approved functions on the left side of the slide. Regular education programs, special education programs, etc. About 75% of education fund dollars support direct classroom instruction. That includes all the costs of the teachers, their fringe benefits, EAs, classroom supplies, everything. About 23% supports classroom services, such as counseling, nursing, instructional media, and professional development. And about 2% supports athletics. One item worth noting here is the decrease in the 21,000 support services during 2025. At the beginning of the 24-25 school year, we knew that 1, tuition support was declining, 2, all elementary schools have been qualified for Title I services, and 3, we had available carryover funds from Title I due to increased funding that occurred during the COVID period. So we chose to move our elementary counseling program to the Title I grant fund. This move reflects a change in funding source, not a reduction in any services to our students. Since carryover funds are nearly depleted now, we are already planning the movement of our counseling program back to the education fund for the 26-27 school year. This move will impact 2026 totals that you will see next year, and ultimately impact the education fund cash balance as we transition that cost. The final education fund slide compares revenue and expenditures. In both 23 and 24, which we will show you later, revenue exceeded expenses, which allowed us to build our education fund cash balance to provide reserves for future use. Much of that growth was tied to ESSER funding during and after COVID. Keep in mind that ESSER federal funds supported things like the district's one-to-one Chromebook program, all digital learning tools, software, and licenses, the Vigo Virtual Success Academy, VDSA, all the device replacements, and additional mental health services and support. Now that the ESSER funding has ended, those costs, if maintained, had to shift back to the education and operations funds for funding support. Ultimately, you can see here that 2025 revenue and expenses were nearly equal, which illustrates that movement of expenses. Now let's look at the operations fund. The operations fund supports district overhead costs in areas such as transportation, facilities, all utilities, and our maintenance program. In 2025, operations fund revenue totaled $40.4 million, which was essentially the same as in 2024. The largest source of revenue is property and related taxes, which generated just over $23 million in 2025. When combined with the transfer from the education fund, those two sources of revenue make up 96% of total operations fund revenue. The operations fund is also where the district absorbs most of the property tax cap loss, which totaled about $8.5 million in 2025. You can see that this fund's revenue is very consistent from year to year. Here you can see the pie chart with the individual slices representing the types of receipts in the operations fund. 48% property tax alone, and 40% transfer from the education fund. If we move to the operation fund expenses, you can see that personnel costs in this fund total about $17.8 million, or roughly 49% of total operations fund spending for 2025. You can also see the employee classifications paid from the operations fund. Custodial maintenance employees, bus drivers, administrators, etc. A different group of employees than those allocated to the education fund. Other expenses paid from the operations fund include property and casualty insurance, utilities, bus purchases, building maintenance, energy savings, project payments, etc. You'll notice the increase in insurance costs in 2025. That occurred because, if you remember, the district moved our insurance renewal date from December of 24 to February of 25, which pushed expenses out of 24 into 25 for that renewal. Those will be more consistent now moving forward as we continue that February renewal date. You can also see utility costs were a little higher in 2025. You'll also see that about $1.4 million in bus purchases are booked here, but the majority of our buses did not come in that were ordered in 25, and you'll see that at a later slide where we show you those encumbrances at year end. We've also highlighted the energy savings contract repayments specifically to point out that one contract was paid off in 2025, one will be paid off in 2026, and the final contract will be paid off in 2029, thus bringing up additional dollars for other maintenance or transportation-related programs. Total expenses in the operations fund were just under $36.3 million in 2025, and you can see that those expenditures are relatively consistent from year to year as we look back to 24 and 23. The operations fund expenditure pie chart was quite a bit different than the education pie chart, because about half of the expenses are wages and fringe benefits in the operations fund as opposed to about 90% in the education fund. The last fund we'll review is the operating referendum fund. This fund was approved by voters in 2019 and provides additional support for both the district's educational programs and operational needs. In 2025, revenue in the operating referendum fund totaled $8.54 million, which was about $200,000 more than in 24, primarily due to increases in property tax collections as the county assessed value increased. Remember that in 2025, the tax rate associated with this fund was 16.22 cents, as approved by voters in 2019. Also remember that this fund sunsets in 27 if not renewed by election of factors. Referendum expenditures. In 2025, the referendum supported $7.95 million in expenditures, including $6.9 million in personnel costs, and about $1 million for transportation, primarily fuel for our bus fleet. Positions supported through this fund include teachers, counselors, school protection officers, nurses, and behavior interventionists, as shown on this slide. The next slide shows how the operating referendum fund supports both the education and operations funds. In 2025, $5.25 million supported education fund type expenses, as noted in yellow, by subsidizing teacher, counselor, behavior interventionist, and nursing salaries. And $2.7 million supported operations fund type expenditures, as noted in orange, specifically our SBO program and transportation fuel costs. If the operating referendum fund was not in place, those costs shift back to the education and operations funds and significantly impact their budgets as well as cash balances. So we did a little exercise and we combined the three funds we reviewed tonight for operation, the three operation funds. We are focusing on about, in these funds, $166.8 million of the district's overall $243.7 million in receipts. With that said, about 69% of the total combined revenue of these funds was state support at $115.6 million. About 19% was property and related taxes, as highlighted in yellow. Nearly 10% was the education to operations fund transfer of just under $16 million. Interest on investments represented about 1% of total receipts. And finally, about $1.7 million was miscellaneous revenue, or that last 1%, and that's highlighted in orange. You can see the pie chart showing that breakdown of revenue. On the expense side, staff costs represented about 79% of all spending across these three funds at $115.2 million. And other expenses total about $30.5 million as shown on this slide. I've excluded the interfund transfer between education and operations, again to reiterate, because it's really not expended until it leaves operation. If we put together a slide on budget versus actual spending. This slide compares the approved budget to the actual cash expenditures. As a matter of good accounting practice and to be conservative, we routinely underestimate revenue and overestimate expenditures with no effort, or our total, we do not want to spend 100% of the budgets. We generally spend about 95% of our education fund budget, as those expenditures are more routine in nature, predominantly salaries and fringe benefits. In the operations fund, those expenditures can fluctuate from year to year as we react to district needs and other funding, such as bond funds. If we have bond fund availability, we might be able to move more maintenance projects over to the bond funds. You can see that in 2025, we expended about 82% of our budget. Now that's cash expenditure, and we'll show you a slide how that plays into things. But we did have some large open purchase commitments that we'll show later. Overall, on average, we spend roughly 90% of our budgets for these funds. This slide provides a broader look at property tax information. This one is difficult to read. There's a lot of information on this slide. The top portion of this slide shows our property tax levy, tax collections, tax cap loss, and tax rate. The combined levy in 2025 was about $47 million. The tax caps were just under $8.5 million. We collected about $38 million. We have a very high collection rate of property taxes in Vigo County. And we had a combined tax rate of 97.61 cents. You'll note the consistency in tax rate from 97.46 cents in 23 to 97.93 cents in 24 and 97.61 cents in 25. You can also see the tax cap losses that were $7.5 million in 23, just under $8 million in 24, and about $8.5 million in 25, with most of that occurring in the operations fund. Over the past 11 years, those circuit breaker losses have totaled nearly $76 million as highlighted in the yellow column at the bottom of just left of slide. Because of that, the district began using rolling general obligation bonds in 2017 to fund large maintenance projects and equipment purchases, removing those expenditures from the operations fund budget. Since then, the district has issued about $65.3 million in GO bonds to help offset circuit breaker losses, as you can see in the peach column in the lower left portion of the screen. You'll also note that early estimates from the DLGF indicate circuit breaker losses could exceed $10.5 million in 2026. On the far right side of the screen, we've also shown the county's assessed value growth from $3.6 billion in 2016 to $5.3 billion for 2026. We had a sizable increase in assessed value. You can also see that we've highlighted the current 2026 tax rate of 90.53 cents, down from 97.61 cents in 2025. Finally, this slide shows our cash balances by fund since 2019, which was the first year that we had the new funding structure. So this is the first year after the general fund transportation. All those funds went away. In 2019, projections showed declining education fund balances, which led the district to seek community support for the operating referendum, which voters approved in November of 2019. At the same time, or relatively close to that, federal CARES and ESSER funds totaling approximately $47 million provided temporary support during the COVID period. ESSER funding supported the rollout, as I said before, of our one-to-one Chromebook initiative, expansion of our virtual school program, expansion of preschool experiences at Deming Early Learning Center, enhancements to learning opportunities, additional mental health supports to student and staff, and HVAC system improvements to improve student learning environments. The strategic use of ESSER funds led to increased fund balances at the end of 23 and 24. But now that those funds have expired, the programs they supported have shifted back to our regular operating funds. So as you can see, the education fund cash balance appears to have plateaued at $12/31/25 at just over $31 million because of both the reduction in overall funding and the increased expenses due to the expiration of those ESSER funds. And you can see on this slide, we've laid out the cash balance, what was encumbered, and when we say encumbered for purposes of Indiana schools, it's items that we have issued purchase orders on that have not been paid at the end of the year. This does not include any personnel costs that would have been accrued and could have been payable on the first operating day of January. This is just COVID purchase orders. Looking at the operations fund, we see some growth between the end of 22 and 23, and as you can see, 12/31/25's net year-end cash balance of $15.2 million. And you can see we had $5.2 million in POs outstanding on the operations fund at year-end, which is relatively high. The majority of that was bus purchases. You'll remember that embedded within the education fund expenditures was a transfer to the operations fund. The past 2 years, that transfer has been just under $16 million. Based on the increased cash balance at 12/31/25 and the additional pressure on the education fund due to declining revenue, the 2026 budget was developed with a transfer of only $14 million. With that reduction, we don't anticipate an increase in the operations fund year-end cash balance at 12/31/26. It's important to note that we have used general obligation bond dollars, and we've issued those for large maintenance projects to relieve pressure on the operations fund over the past several years with intent to establish a reserve in this fund. If we do not continue issuance of the short-term general obligation bonds, that will also cause a decline in the operations fund cash balance at year-end. Finally, the cash balance in the operating referendum fund landed at $2.6 million in 12/31/25. We chose to allow some growth to this fund balance, knowing that our election to reduce our referendum tax rate in '26 to just over 12 cents would require residual cash to fund '26 activities. Remember that funding for the operating referendum sunsets in '27 if a renewal is not approved during an election in 2026. It's also important to point out that with our transition to CCHA board policies, the board will need to address and establish cash balance targets for inclusion in the new board policies. As the board works to determine what adequate cash balance targets should be, we will provide you with average monthly costs, trend data, federal grant cash flow needs, etc. to help with that determination. Because you remember on the federal grants, we actually expend those funds and then file for reimbursement to get those funds back. So that's why on your month-end financial statement, you usually see large negative balances in those federal grant funds. So we float that with our cash balance.
And just as a reminder, we had a year where we almost went one full year without any reimbursements for the Title
On
I.
Title I. And Title I is our biggest federal grant, outside of school.
Could I pause just for a moment? Just, again, I'm bringing it up on the property tax information slide, just 2 slides back. But you hit on it that our tax rate is lower in 2025. And I know when the assessed values came out, there were comments made that the increase was due to the school corporation. And just for the record, just to reiterate again, we lowered the tax rate. Those assessed value rates were not due to the school corporation increasing any taxes.
And our levies are actually capped with a growth quotient that's put up by the state. So we could not get all that revenue from that assessment, even if we wanted to. Even if we had the ability, we can't legally do that. The growth quotient, I believe, for '26 was 4%. It goes between 3 and 5%. I believe last year it was 4, so we were limited. The levy went up $1 million, but also the circuit breaker tax cap losses will negate part of that increase. You're correct. We've included a copy of the 2026 budget order showing our current tax rate of 90.53 cents with total levies of $177.5 million when we include the debt service tax levy. Remember that these levies are before the application of the circuit breaker tax cap credits, so we anticipate reduced levies of approximately $10 million for the cap losses portion to our funds. In summary, the district continues to exercise opportunities for savings, whether it be through the strategic use of grant funds or use of bond fund proceeds to reduce operational costs. And we acknowledge the need to continue efforts to right-size our operations. We are focused on ensuring the financial stability of the school corporation as best we can for as long as we can, despite the challenges we face. We told taxpayers that the district's tax rate would go down based on increased assessed values and our planned reduction in the operating referendum tax levy, and our tax rate did in fact go down. We are working with and through our professional organizations and with local legislators to increase awareness of the successes of a robust preschool program during a time when state funding has been limited. We continue to seek out grant opportunities and strategically align corporation expenses in a manner that benefits the district's overall financial health. We keep cash balances invested to provide additional revenue for the district, and we continue providing financial information to our taxpayers to promote transparency and fiscal responsibility. Our school staffs continue to do great things with and for the students of Vigo County. We appreciate your commitment to and support of our students, staff, and programs. And with that, I entertain questions. Just don't make them very difficult. It's been a long night.
Any questions? I just have to say thank you for this. I mean, I think one way that Dr. Rashida and her team, and in this presentation, I feel like if there's anything you should take away this evening is to share this school board meeting and point people in talking about our school corporation, the services we provide, and our financial stability that we do have as a corporation. These are the presentations to watch. Thank you.
I'd also like to just point out, you've heard across the state, there's a number of school corporations making many cuts. Some of those are them are because there were decisions made with the ESSER funding and some of those other kinds of things that were done to use it for recurring expenses. And we were very strategic in doing those in a way that did not have as little ongoing effect on the budget as possible, and to take advantage of the fact of building up the reserves. I know that seems like a large amount of money, but at the end of the day, it's about 3 months worth of cash on hand, which is not very much and can go very quickly. But it's because of the foresight that Donna had and the commitment she had to trying to make sure that we would have flexibility moving forward and not expend those one-time funds on recurring expenses, but to take care of one-time expenses so that we could build up those cash reserves, because we know that there are things that we're going to have to address and we need to set ourselves up to do so. So we thank Donna for allowing us to have that flexibility as we make some very difficult decisions in the next several months.
And I would like to thank
either to Indiana, because I talk to schools and districts, and just for my day job across the country, that are suffering for the lack of that kind of foresight. And Stacy and I were on board when we were hearing those plans described for ESSER funding, and this is something we got right, big time.
the funding cliffs that other schools have kind of done. But I would like to thank Cindy Dehart, is my right hand in the business office. She does all the grant accounting and works closely with Caitlin Lieberman. So the grant accounting is its own beast, and we really appreciate that. We have a good group of people that we try to keep it on track for. So it's a lot of payroll.
Moving on, grades, Dr. Ferguson.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Hempsel, and members of the board. It's my pleasure this evening to introduce to you Principal Lindsay Wilcoit, Principal Booker T. Washington, and Vigo Virtual Success Academy. Lindsay is a fierce advocate for those who may not have the traditional support that other students see in their home environment. She is constantly looking for new and innovative ways to meet our students where they're at, and to provide unique, personalized experiences to ensure that her students have access to the same opportunities as their peers. Recently, Ms. Wilcoit discovered a gap that she felt existed between the services we provide in her building and what her students needed to be prepared for college and careers. Rather than accept that gap, she leaned into it and brought forward an idea to the Vigo County Administration, a thoughtful and student-centered solution. She has gone out and partnered with our CTE individuals to create a dedicated college and career coach within her building. She recognized that her students often need more intentional guidance, exposure, and advocacy to navigate these post-secondary pathways. The work that you're going to hear about tonight is a direct result of her leadership, her persistence, and her deep belief that every student, regardless of their circumstances, deserves access to high-quality experiences, strong support, and a future full of possibilities. With that, I'll introduce Mr. Doug Dillion, who is going to talk to you about our partner in this opportunity we're calling Pathways to Prosperity.
Lindsay, why don't you go ahead? Yeah, go ahead.
I'll be fast, very fast. Thank you, Dr. Borges. On behalf of Booker T. Washington and Vigo Virtual Success Academy, I want to express my deepest gratitude for this grant. Our students, if you've ever met them or experienced them, are some of the most resilient individuals that you'll ever meet in our community, but they struggle with obstacles that even us as adults can't even comprehend. The funding for this grant isn't just about college and career readiness on paper. It's about giving our students a fair shot that some of them don't have. By expanding our post-secondary and employability skills for our kids, we're adding a vital tool to their toolbox that they would not have if we didn't provide it for them. This would also provide them to be better to enter the workforce and help the Vigo County community grow. As we're all seeing it happening, we are going to be able to bring people into the workforce. So I'm pretty proud of that.
Thank you, Lindsay. I just want to mention, I have here with me, when Lindsay came to us with this project, of course, you got to figure out how you're going to fund a project. And Greg Lee, which is the new executive, well, been there a year now? 2 years. Wait, 2 years now. The executive director of Workwell Western Indiana. We started talking, and he came up with a proposal, put it to a committee, and ultimately, this project went through his board, and that's, this little paper is a little summary, and I want to draw attention to the support for student successes, because that's where Booker T kids land, and they need that support. But Greg Lee went one step further, and he's got it so we can actually expand the project to our other high schools this summer. So Greg, you want to tell them a little bit about how you made this happen for us?
I will try my best. So thank you for having me here. Doug called it my board. It's more Doug's board than it is mine. He's been out longer than I have. And Rick was the president for a long time, so thank you to both of them. So the reason this program came about, kind of, is because if you're familiar with the Jobs for America's Graduates program, otherwise known as JAG, or Jobs After Graduation, Judge Advocate General, whatever you think, whatever you hear. Jobs for America's Graduates. So it's unfortunately the state made a decision. It was not put in the budget. That was done last year's session, so this is the last year for the program. At the end of the school year last year, we had 17 programs in our 6-county area. Right now we have 4, and they'll be finishing at the end of this school year. So we have a lot of remaining JAG funds left until the end of 2026, and we didn't want to just send it back. And we want a way to use this, use it wisely, and hopefully give us a way to have a pilot that we can promote later if we have funding to do so. So just a little bit about the JAG program. It was in Region 7, our 6-county area. It's been in Indiana for 20 years. I started the program at Terre Haute South in 2013 with Dr. Rochendale. And so it's very close to my heart. It's kind of started where I started my career. Some of the things that we do in the JAG program go along perfectly with the work-based learning requirements and the diploma requirements that are coming out, so it's important that this program went away. So hopefully we have some chance to deliver that this way. So some of the success barriers that we saw with our JAG students, which go along perfectly with who we're targeting here: pregnant and parenting, low income, free reduced lunch, 2.0 GPA or below, homeless, lack of a fixed place to sleep in the evenings, incarcerated parents. I mean, there's a full spectrum of those things. But with that program, in my 13 years with the program, we've never seen a graduation rate below 94%. Some of the standards were held to after 12 months after graduation, after they've hopefully gotten a high school diploma. We followed them once a month for 12 months, and our most recent numbers, our graduation rate for the class of 2023 was 98%. A year after graduation, full-time employment rate was 88%. Further education rate, 51%. Full-time placements, 88%, so that's a combination of work and school. And then a connection rate of 98%, so we were able to get in contact with 98% of our 400 students after 12 months. So it just shows the connection, the extra support that we can provide. Sorry, I got off on a tangent. We are going to provide the funding for it for 4 of the schools, and we're really excited for that. It'll just give it a good chance to see what we can do with it and hopefully work with it in the future.
And he's being a little modest. Funding for the schools, that's up to $20,000 a school. And when we started this project, we were just trying to figure out how we could give an opportunity to high school kids in the summer and during the school year, but extra supports like resume building and things. Because JAG did have very good data, very good results. We're trying to figure out, now that JAG's eliminated, how we can transition and still provide these services. And Lindsay's like, I got the kids, I want to do it. And so we're really excited. So we're seeking approval tonight, and we'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
I would like to finally make a motion to accept this grant for Pathways to Prosperity. Thank you guys so much.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any comments, questions? Seeing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to our second call for citizen comments. I have received none, but we'll do our pause and wait. Okay, so moving on to information from superintendent and board members.
Obviously, I'd like to take some time to say thank you to the Vigo County History Center for hosting us tonight. I believe they're not used to being open on Monday, so this is, and definitely not into the evening, so we appreciate their opportunity to do this. And if you get a chance, be sure to stop on your way down the second floor to see the school things on your way out. This past weekend, I was able to attend the semi-state in Newcastle, where Terre Haute North took on New Albany. And all I can say was that in the third quarter, I thought we had turned the corner and we were going to get that game. It obviously didn't work out the way we wanted to, but we're very, very proud of the kids. I was also very proud of our community. Our community in the third quarter and beyond definitely made a big difference for the kids. We were all there. We almost willed them to it, but the ball didn't go in there. Because of the game being on Saturday, Terre Haute North has rescheduled their dance marathon, which was supposed to happen at that time. Instead, the kids went to the game, and we're cheering. So April 17th is the new date for the Terre Haute North Dance Marathon. And because we know Terre Haute North is coming up with their dance marathon, we'll hold off on giving reports about other dance marathons that have been occurring throughout the district and report on them all at once. Also want to report that all three of our high schools were represented at the state DECA convention in Indianapolis at the beginning of March. Photos and a listing of winners have been posted on our social media channels. We wish all of our students luck as they continue to compete at the international level. There are far too many for me to read them all off, so please go to our social media page where they are all listed. Earlier this month, Vigo County School Corporation Middle School and High Schools completed impressive performances with the ISMA Jazz Festivals. Congratulations to all of our students and advisors. South Vigo High School Jazz Strings received a gold rating. South Vigo Jazz Band, a gold rating with distinction. West Vigo High School, home of the Vikings Jazz Band, also earned a gold rating with distinction. Terre Haute North Vigo High School Jazz Band, a gold rating. And Honey Creek Middle School Jazz Band also earned a gold rating. A reminder that enrollment for next school year is open. This is predominantly for students who are new to us, either in preschool or kindergarten, but it is also open to people who left Vigo County Schools but would like to return, as well as those who are relocating to our district. We are asking that this be done as quickly as possible so that by April 15th we have the most accurate numbers we can for future staffing, but obviously we will take new students all the way out at any time they arrive. I don't think I need to do this reminder, but in case anyone has forgotten, next week is spring break. We hope that our kids have a very safe and restful spring break, as well as our teachers and those who work in our buildings.
Okay, so our next meeting will be